¿Lista?
Yes.
I never really know what's going on.
Hello everybody, thank you very much for coming again to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate the people that have been spending time on my channel. But this time I'm very excited because I have somebody very special. Before I say everything I'm thinking of, I would like for you to introduce yourself. Who are you?
Hi, my name is Dr. Lasa Cardoza. I am the president of American River College. It's been 4 weeks now.
How does that feel?
Okay, well, did I talk to you?
Yeah, we can just talk to
Okay.
each other, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so wonderful. I will say each day gets better and better. Each week it gets better, especially as we're preparing to welcome our new students back to campus. So many new names and faces, new buildings, new acronyms to learn. But as I was telling the students this morning, we had a kickoff, and I was telling them, I said, I feel like a new student right here on campus, but I love learning. And so I was like, we're here to make sure that they have the best learning experience.
I would like to say how I met you. You were a guest speaker at the Nueva Época cohort, and first of all, what stood out to me is your bandana. You always wear some Latino style bandanas. I thought
And I wore it today.
it makes you very unique. I loved it. And to me, it shows that you're proud of to be a Latina. You're proud of your background, and I think it's awesome. I would like to go back from when you were a little. How were you when you were before high school? What were you doing at that time?
Oh my goodness, you're gonna take me way back. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my upbringing because I think that'll help lead into that, right? So I am the third daughter of 6 girls, right? All girls, no boys. I know everyone's like, your poor dad. but he, they raised some feminists in us. But yeah, so I was, kind of the middle child. Loved my sisters. We had a really good upbringing. My parents were very positive people, and even though we grew up statistically poor, like that realization came later in life, right? As we were applying for financial aid and stuff for colleges, it was like, oh, we are probably below the poverty line, but we didn't know it, right? We didn't experience it. I mean, we very loving family, very fortunate, big families. We would get together with my cousins all the time too, and. So I grew up a very blessed, right, and very fortunate childhood. I mean, maybe it's also because I tend to remember all the good and try to forget the bad, right? But I just again, I'm very fortunate. And so in school, I mean, we were like, I liked to participate in as many things as I could. I mean,
did you get good grades all the time?
I did. So I actually haven't shared this story. I didn't write it in my dissertation. When I was in first grade, I remember being called to the principal's office. This was like before the semester ended. And I was so scared because I was such a good student, right? So I wasn't sure what had happened, and my parents were there. And so they wanted to talk to my parents about moving me up a grade. So I went from first to second. And because in first grade, I was actually like being a teacher's aide. I would get the classroom was kind of separated into 2 areas. We were, the front of the classroom where our teacher was, and then there was a back area, and she would ask me to help tutor, right, some of the students who needed some additional help. I know, I forgot about that.
First grade.
Yes, I remember.
I think it's funny.
And so then, I got, sent to the principal's office, and they talked to my parents, and it must have taken some time to make that decision. But then the second half of the year, I was in second grade. Yeah, so I was young-ish already because my birthday's not until March, and so then I was even younger, but. Yeah, so I always strived to get good grades.
And then high school, let's talk about high school.
Yeah, so then high school, I did a lot of sports. I think, when I think about it now, I think I wanted to be a gymnast when I grew up because I had a lot of energy and I loved like tumbling and stuff, and they didn't offer it in the town that I lived in. There were no gyms or anything nearby, and my mom, we were all in ballet also, and so I remember like not feeling like ballet was what I wanted to do, but I wanted to, so I joined cheerleading because that was how I was going to learn, how to stunt and tumble and all of that stuff. So
what was your favorite subject in high school?
Oh, I don't know that I had a favorite subject. I think I just always wanted to do my best in all of the subjects. I can't, because I didn't like history. I didn't like, I was like, there wasn't even, I thought I was really good at math. Or I was really good at math, and I thought that was, I actually thought that's what I was gonna do. So I was like, accounting or business or something was where I was.
Now, let's get to the fun part that I read on her dissertation. So, to me, what I read on your dissertation, it tells me like you're a very good student, like you study, like you do your homework, like the instructor asks a question, you'll be the first one raising the hand.
In the front of the class?
In the front of the class. How did that happen? You got pregnant.
Yeah.
You fell in love?
Well, I'll try to go back to, I was very active in school, but I also and I still kind of live it out now, right? I'm a work hard, play hard person. And I got in trouble enough too, right? Like I wasn't just the nerdy Lisa. There was a fun party Lisa.
So you were a good student, but you liked to
Correct.
have fun. Right?
Correct. And I got in trouble often. Like I got caught sneaking out of the house. I got. I mean, yes. I got.
Future student, listen to that.
Sorry. No, but I did. I got caught drunk one time, right?
Wow.
Like it was. I mean, that was not a good. That was bad. But so, and I don't drink beer anymore because of that incident. I'll just say that much. But so, but I was again, I had this side of me that enjoyed, kind of living on the edge a little bit. But I was always, I could always say like, well, but I got good grades, parents, right? Like, that was always kind of my out. Unfortunately, but I had to work really hard for those good grades. Like, I remember my older sister, she just was like naturally smart. She didn't have to study. She, and I was there, till midnight reading my books and studying in art because we had to share rooms, right?
Imagine if you had a cell phone back then and you're studying, you're like,
yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Oh yeah, we fought over the phone too because we had like one phone for 6 girls, right? Okay. So I met my future husband in high school. He was a football player. I was a cheerleader. We hung around the same group of friends. But I the other thing I'll say too is in this small town, like no one talked about sex, and no one educated us about what that looked like, and so I don't know, I think I got pregnant like after the second time. Right, so it was not like, I don't know, it was just very fertile. Sorry. But yeah, so that was my senior year. Obviously, as a teenager, you think you're invincible. You think,
nothing can happen.
It didn't happen to any of my friends, and so and I knew that some of them were active, and yeah, you just think it's not going to happen. And yeah, I got into the school of my dreams, and I thought I was gonna.
That's one thing that amazed me and respect. Even though right now, because we're old, I can imagine us being 15 because we're about the same age. So being 15 and she got pregnant. Oh my God, what happened and all of that. But nowadays, I bet you have a big man, a beautiful boy with you, right? So
absolutely,
it wouldn't change nothing.
Oh no. No, I will say too, like I don't have any regrets in my life. I feel like things have happened, for certain reasons, and I've learned so much from them.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I take every opportunity to really, to learn. But yes, and I have recently told at least my little one, I said, at this age, I think I would be so career driven that I wouldn't have had kids yet. right? If I hadn't had them young,
Mm-hmm.
and now I think I would be in a different position and a different spot in life, thinking like, oh, should I have had kids?
Yeah,
So I'm grateful I did.
They came right on time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you were valedictorian.
Yes. So again, another part of being a teenager and being naive is I didn't tell anyone. I hid it, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gaining weight because I'm not cheering anymore because I was done being a cheerleader. And so I was like, yeah, my little sister says she remembers me getting dressed one morning and noticing,
And then around all the females, you imagine, I don't know, I think it's a beautiful memory.
Yeah. Yeah, so I told my son I was 5 months pregnant when I gave my valedictory speech, and I was like, you were on stage with me technically.
So he was the valedictorian too.
Yeah.
Wow. So you graduated high school. Why did you choose to go to Stanford?
Well, so yeah, that's actually a really good another interesting story too. So we had a high school teacher. I think it was history that he taught, Francisco Guajardo, and he had this brilliant idea to he wanted to show that students, now remember where I graduated high school from at Cal Chelsea, it was the 5th core school district at the time, and he wanted to show us that we could be competitive in Ivy League schools, right, at Ivy League schools. Now, at that time, I knew I wanted to go to a university. I don't think I understood yet what the Ivy League schools were, right? And so he started this East Coast trip to visit the Ivy League schools. And I recognized then how important relationships are, right? And it's like, it shouldn't be all about who you know, but there's so many times where that connection is so important, right? And he was doing this for us, right? For a group of students from a poor district in rural district in South Texas. So Frank Guajardo, we would raise money. This is when I say like, oh, I've had fundraising experience before. We would sell enchilada plates, and we would stand on the side of the road. Oh, I guess it was cheerleading too. We would stand on the side of the road and with our megaphones and raise money. Right? So I've been raising money for a while. That'll come later in the story about why. But so we would get donations, and he took. I think my sister was one of the first ones, but I was fortunate enough. I think like the top 10 students who would take them on the East Coast trip. And we got to visit the campuses, talk to admissions counselors, right? Meet alum from the area who had happened to get into these schools, or from the region too, because then we realized it's so much more than being from South Texas was something that we could relate to, right, with each other, being from the Rio Grande Valley. And so we went. And so I was fortunate. My sister was a student at Columbia. And in New York, right? Columbia's like in the middle of New York City, and oh my gosh, she was so cool, and I was just like, I want to be just like her. She had gotten her nose pierced. I know, yes, my parents were, my dad was mortified. Oh, so I went to go visit her, and it was so cold. I just remember it being so cold. But it was still like this beautiful. So we went to like Brown and Harvard and Columbia and Yale. So anyway, so that was what my mindset was. Okay, I want to come to a school like this. And I had a Teach for America teacher who had gone to Stanford who said, you should consider applying to Stanford. And so a friend of mine, we did. And we both got admitted, and they paid for our flights to go visit because we were poor, right? So we went for admit weekend. And oh my gosh, and it was like, the Stanford campus is gorgeous. All of these campuses are gorgeous, but it was sunny, it was like beautiful, and I thought,
you fell in love.
I was like, oh, I need to be in California. This is more, more Lisa. Yeah, and so I fell in love with Stanford. I, again, made my decision naively, right, knowing that I was pregnant and knowing that might change my ability to go to Stanford, but yeah, that's how I, kind of fell in love.
That's one thing that I honestly admire as a Latina, because sometimes we're trying to mention the statistics and all of that, but and we're like, oh, this happened, now I'm gonna take this road. No, you took both roads.
I know.
That is something to admire her, honestly,
Yeah.
because even just going to, like me, I went to cosmetology school, and just cosmetology school in general, studying, it's hard. I cannot imagine studying for it. I cannot imagine how many classes, how did you do it?
Yeah, and it was a tough reality. I will say. Well, one, I didn't do it alone, right? I mean, I that's kind of how I operate. I always say it takes a village. Like we all help raise each other. It takes a village, and in this case, it was so true, right? So. I had good friends who were already at Stanford, so was able to get them. My sisters came up with me different times, but a couple of them stayed with me to help with the childcare because that was really hard too. And yeah, I mean, it was just like it's such a let me back up real quick, because one of the things that I thought I was going to have to do was make a decision to stay home. My mom was very clear: we will help you raise the baby, right? When I finally did tell everyone. And it was somebody at this school said, you should call Stanford and ask if you can defer enrollment. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't quite understand, but some people take years off to go do things, right? And usually, it was a thing at Stanford. They'd go backpacking or go help someone in the third world country, right? It's just been interesting, but. So I got to talk to Stanford, to the counselor admissions or something, and they said they approved me to defer my enrollment. So instead of starting the year right after high school, I had my baby. I had him in September that year, and then and then I got married the following June. So we all went together as a family at Stanford. Yeah, and so they put me up in graduate housing. I had an apartment at Escondido Village, 112A is where I lived for the 5 years that I was there. They put me in contact with, there was someone there my first year who would check in on me. The dean of the graduate housing would check in on me regularly. There were 4 other students who were kind of non-traditional students is what we ended up calling ourselves. 3 of them were mom. The 3 women had kids, and then 1 was married, right? So we were just kind of the not traditional students. But that was it. There were 4 of us.
Out of the whole university.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know.
Now you did 5 years there.
Yeah. So okay. Well, let me tell you how I chose my major, because I talk about to students about this a lot. Find what you like, find what you don't like, and then you just keep that in mind, what you're learning. And so at Stanford you have fuzzies and techies. And so the fuzzies were the English majors, right? The humanities, things like that. And then the techies were your sciences. So it was engineering and math and all that. So the fuzzy classes were 3 units each, which meant you had to take 15 units as a full semester, which meant you had to take 5 classes. And the techie classes were 5 units each, which meant you only had to take 3. Well, I found somewhere in between. I studied economics, and that's how I decided econ would be my majors, because they were worth 5 units, and it was a good mix of problem solving, problem sets, and then having to justify and being able to write. So that's how I ended up deciding on econ. Then. A friend of mine had done a co-terminal degree, is what it's called, and stayed 1 more year to get a master's in education. And so I applied for that program, and ended up getting it. And so in 5 years, I got my bachelor's and my master's. Wow. Co-terminal degree.
Oh wow! Now your parents had 6 girls. All of them went to school.
Yes, I can share where. So sister number 1, Connie, went to the University of Texas at Austin. Sister number 2, who I was talking about earlier, Karina, she went to Columbia. I went to Stanford. Sister 4, Sara, went to Yale. Sister 5, Sabina, also went to Stanford. And then my little sister, Rebecca, who also has a story of her own to share. She got pregnant really young as well. She went to the University of Texas Pan American, but then she immediately went into a doctoral program. So she was the first to get her doctorate.
Wow. What do you think your parents did in order for you guys to think of college? Because I didn't go to college, and it was my decision. At the end of the day, it's not your parents, it's your decision, but your parents mold you in a way that make you want to make decisions like this.
Yeah, I mean, so again, like I said, shared earlier, like they're all very, very positive, right? My parents were always so positive, always instilled in us how important education was, and to do well. They both are college graduates. That's where they met. They met at their university. It was always that was always just a part of us, growing up. It was education was so important. Even when we were little, we would play school together, right? My mom was a teacher. My dad was more of an entrepreneur, but we had a video store, like a video rental store.
Like a Blockbuster?
Yes. But then my dad added a restaurant to it, right? Or I can't remember. Yeah, I think he added the restaurant later. And so, but we helped. That's why I thought I was going to be a business. I was going to go into business because we would help. I would help with payroll, and we would help with the cashier and stuff. And so yeah, I think they just instilled in us a really good work ethic. And a lot of one of the other things that I've noticed too is my dad was so proud of us and my mom as well, right? But I remember my dad, we would go to church every Sunday, and he just so the community saw us grow up. It was important for him, to be there, to be part of the community. And if we won an award or something, he was always so proud. He would always share and was so proud. And so even when we weren't there, he would talk about us, right? I remember hearing later, people were like, "Oh, your dad told us all about, all about."
We know everything.
Exactly.
Oh.
So imagine those knowing all of that. How me becoming pregnant, how that felt.
And all of that.
Right.
Cool.
So I think now, yes. I think that's the other thing too. I don't want to disappoint people. That was probably the worst feeling ever. Which is why I strived for A's, right? Which is why I never wanted to disappoint, especially my parents. And fortunately, it was a positive drive, right? That sometimes it can be in other situations and less positive situations, it can maybe be detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a positive because they raised us so lovingly, right? And so we always wanted to.
That's just beautiful. I think it's a very, very good story to listen to and to use it as an example for in our case, maybe our kids, maybe to encourage them to a better path. There's no wrong mistakes. There's just another way.
That's right.
That's how I feel. That's how I think it is. Now you finished Stanford. What happened after that? One thing that I was reading about you, you were vice president of sex ed, right?
Yes.
And then I was reading all of your curriculum. I was just wondering. No. When I was reading, I'm like, have you ever worked at a grocery store or ice cream place?
Yeah.
Did you ever?
No. Well, but I did with my parents.
Oh,
right.
That's true.
Yeah. So, and we helped run the business. We served as security guards because we had candies and chips.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So kids would sometimes come and take, want to steal, and so my dad would make a stand. Reporter, I hated doing that. I'm not a good security guard.
So don't hire her for security.
I don't want to tell anyone. Right? I don't know. I'm not that confrontational. But yeah, so we did all that. We were little waitresses sometimes. We would help, in the kitchen. We would help, like I said, the cash register. We would help at the video store, rewinding tapes and putting them back in the little cases and putting them out to the ones that were available, right? So we did all of that, I think. And the other thing too, my dad decided that it would be a good idea to have a raspa stand in front of the a raspa,
raspas?
Snow cones.
No.
And so he called it the kids stand. And it was like a drive-through though. And so
you guys invented the drive-through.
I'll tell you, my dad was literally super entrepreneurial. And so the cars would come up, and so I worked making raspas, the shaved ice, and that little large. I don't know if you've ever seen those large.
The metal thing.
Yes.
Oh, what flavors?
My favorite was lemon. touch it. And then my dad, I think it was my dad, somebody, I don't know, put a scoop of ice cream inside. Have you ever had leche?
No.
Oh my god. So good. We have to go try it now. But yeah, that's what, yeah, so we had, and then we had like rainbow. You know, we had all the regular
All the
flavors
flavors.
too.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
See, you got your background in that too. Now, after the university, what did you do?
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah. So immediate. Oh, my graduate year at Stanford, somebody had asked me if I would consider being a coordinator, for a peer mentoring program, and I was like, I don't have time. But I went to meet with the director, and she, basically, and so I'm grateful for whoever gave her my name. But so she said, it's not a whole lot of time, like, here's what we need. So it was called PAY. I think it was like peer assisted, won't remember it, but it was mentoring, peer-to-peer mentoring. And I was the coordinator for the Latino area, right, for the Latino students. And that, my graduate year, and I think that's also when I started realizing how, like, I really thought I was going to be a teacher, even though I didn't think I was going to like it, right? When you grow up in a small rural town, success to me was being a teacher, a lawyer, or a doctor, right? Like, those are the only careers that I knew, even though we had career day, but still, those were like the successful careers. And then going to Stanford, and then, all of that, it just opened the world for me, right? It was just like, there's so
many options,
so much more to explore. And then going through this, serving as a coordinator for this program, I was like, I actually kind of like working in higher ed, and I like helping people. That was already, instilled in me. And so I was like, well, what more could that look like, right? Could I make a career out of this? So we decided it was time to come back home after spending 5 years at Stanford and paying for all those flights, because that's probably what I have debt, And so we came back home, and I was outreach. I was the director of, we called it the Valley Outreach Center. It was a new thing at the university that I was at, University of Texas Pan American. And so the state of Texas, that has a coordinating board, they had created this campaign to get more students to go to college. And so it was a college, Texans for all. College for all? Texans? Now I can't, I don't know. And it was college for all. And so we had gotten a grant, and I had kind of started this outreach center. They were looking for the first director. So I was hired, but I also oversaw things like the TRIO programs, and which we have here now at the American River College, and at Sac State we had a few too. Federal grant programs, right? Interestingly enough, I also oversaw a mother-daughter program that I had been in, that my sisters and my mom and I had participated in. It was called the Hispanic Mother-Daughter Program when we were participants, but they just, they dropped Hispanic at the time, which was Mother-Daughter Program. So I got to oversee that. So really, it felt real full circle.
Pretty much, you were a member, and then you kind of like lead
it. Yeah.
And I feel like that's what makes a difference, because you know exactly what's going on inside, and then when you go on the other side, it makes more sense to make decisions.
Well, and I'll tell you, I vividly remember participating in one of the mother-daughter program events. I think we had taken a trip to UTSA, but I think there was like a cultural event at UTSA we wanted to go. But I vividly remember sitting in a college, because our high schools don't look like the auditoriums, right? That the classroom auditoriums that you have in college. And I remember sitting there, and I remember having a speaker. I don't even remember who she was, but it was a Latina. And I remember thinking like this felt tangible, right? It made college feel like this is something I can do. I can see myself right in the seat, and maybe I want to be talking like her someday, right? Sharing, I don't know if that's what I was thinking at the time, but I do remember it making an impact on me. And so I wanted to make sure that all of the students we served, right, felt the same. And so we would, just make things special to. I want people, again, when you see someone who looks like you think, I can, right? And I think that's why representation is so.
And probably back in the days, do you think was less Hispanic stuff now, or?
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. I mean, because like even if you look at the data, and I think that was also interesting too, right? So I'm coming from deep South Texas where it's like 90% Hispanic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I go to Stanford that has a high Latinx population, but I felt like I wanted to get away from that, right? I wanted to explore more. Well, I wasn't having I had a child. I didn't have a lot of opportunity to explore, right? And then my junior year is when I got more involved in like the Chicano Latino Association there at Central, and like then I was like, oh, this is my familia, right? Like I needed that break, I think, but it was definitely when I was ready, they were definitely there, and that's really what made it. Like,
Make a difference.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Now you were in Texas at the time.
Oh yes, doing outreach. And so I ran that for a couple of years, and then I got asked to apply for a position to work for the vice president. So the vice president for student affairs, I think is what it was there. The outreach was under him, right? So he had like seen me present, and you know we had good numbers, good participation numbers. We had created some summer programming and things. And so yeah, I got asked to apply to be assistant to the vice president, and so I was doing budgets and things like that. And then my former boss, the person who hired me in this outreach role, was leaving, and so I applied for his position, and he was senior director of student programs. I can't remember the whole cast of what it was. College access support programs, something like that. Anyway, so he left, and so I applied for that job and got that job. And then, so yeah, this was about 5 years in. And then President Nelson had just been named president of University of Texas Pan American, University of Texas Pan American down there. And he saw me present on all my programs, and I shared my story because I was talking about the mother-daughter program, I think. And his chief of staff was retiring. So I don't know exactly how it happened, but basically she called me and said, I think you should apply for this position. And I had just started my doctoral program, so I was like, no, I can't, I had my second son by then, he was like 3 or 4, and she was insistent, and she was like, I'm gonna take you to lunch, and I'm gonna, so we did, we talked it through. She said, just apply. So I said, okay. And so I submitted my application and got to interview with, made it to the final round, and I'm interviewing. I remember this vividly about President Nelson. So we're sitting like close to each other, and he has in his watch he has a Swiss Army knife, like the little Swiss Army knives, and I was like, why would a president be walking with a Swiss Army knife? But so we were facing budget cuts at the time. It was 2010, so after the 2008 decline. Texas was a little bit further, it didn't hit Texas as hard, but by 2010 we were facing it. It was like, why would anyone want this job? And it's enrollment, we're gonna have to face budget cuts. We're gonna have to, maybe fire people, lay them off. And so I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, well, because our students, I said, whatever my response was about how important it was for students, right? And how, we should be fighting for our students. And that's, that was why I would want that job. So obviously, it worked. Obviously, he knew what I was passionate about, right? And I think he was just trying to get it out of me. So, so I started working with him, spent 5 years as chief of staff there. And then, so the funny story too is that I replaced 2 retiring Carols, so Carol Rausch there and Carol Ensley here at Sac State. So then they decided to merge 2 institutions, University of Texas Pan American, our institution, with the sister institution, University of Texas at Brownsville. And so decided, it wasn't a merger, but it was creating a new university that effectively brought those 2 together underneath. And so they created University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. We worked really hard to get it passed through the legislature, and then basically, my boss worked himself out of a job.
So this is what I'm trying to understand. Mm-hmm. You guys sat together and figured a way to create a new university? Yes. I mean, it wasn't just me and him. It was our chancellor at the time. There were,
and so the reason why we needed to create a new university is because Texas has a pot of money basically from its oil funds, oil contributions, and because of the way that by law, because of the way that those institutions became part of the University of Texas system, we did not have access to what permanent university fund is what this pot of money was called, PUF money. So someone found a loophole, and if we created a new university that was part of the University of Texas system, that new university would have access to those funds. And then we're talking about millions and millions of dollars, right? Like this is how all the other campuses were getting buildings built and stuff. And so we decided it was worth the risk, and we went forward with it. It was a tremendous task. I mean, you're talking accreditation, you're talking, all of this, so much that needs to happen, but we went forward with it and we're successful. And so, but they brought in a new president to run the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. They have a medical school now. Like, I mean, it was the right thing to do.
How does it feel to go look back?
Oh my gosh.
How was it?
Yeah, no, amazing. They're growing tremendously still. And I have a lot of friends who still work there, right? A lot of colleagues, and just to hear, there's been some bumps along the way, but I think overall it's nice. It's great. Absolutely.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I don't know. Now I admire you more because you just are ensuring my path. Because when I started writing my curriculum for my project, I'm like, okay, this is what they want us to do, but I called them. I literally called them and told them, do I have to follow what I see over here? They're like, no, you can just do whatever as long as you meet the requirements. I'm like,
oh wow, yes, right. It is.
And
it's
this is just what you're saying. Is you created a task,
yeah.
and then you build it among what the city needs, what the people need.
Yeah.
So
yes. No, it has.
exciting.
It's thank you. It's been. I mean, obviously, like I said, it wasn't me. It wasn't all me. But it is to think back and know how hard we worked with the legislators, with our, all of our. It took so many people. Oh my gosh! I remember when it was finally announced, and I remember everyone who was on the list to be thanked, right? And of course, it is the president, right? And the senators and but it's when I think about it, I see all the staff under me, right? Because I was that, right? I was the chief of staff, right? And so I don't need the accolades, I don't need, but I know how important it is for everybody who has, like I said, it takes a village, it takes a team, right? Everybody who had a role, so we all did it together.
What did you feel when you guys were approved, when everything was finalized? What was the feeling?
Oh, elated. I mean, I remember we took pictures because they had to vote, right? And so the little green dots would come on. Everyone voting yes. Yeah, and so we got unanimous in one house, and I think we won by one. We didn't get on the other, but yeah, it was just elated. And then it was like, okay, now the real work begins, right? Now we have to start tearing it apart in order to build this new. So, and then that was hard when he didn't get when President Nelson didn't get that presidency. It was a new team, a new everything.
So that's the beauty of life.
It is, and that's what brought us to Sacramento.
So you moved to Sacramento after that?
Yes. Okay. So President Nelson then starts. He was applying for looking for presidency. Gets hired at Sacramento State. And within about a month, I think they found out, and because he and I would talk oh, maybe when I was still remember the doctoral program, and so he was at some point during the future, let's talk about what a position could look like if I wanted to leave, which I kind of did. The new leadership was just very different than than what I was used to. And within a month, his chief of staff said she was ready to retire, or she was going to retire. So I applied for that position, and I actually didn't know if I was the right person for that chief of staff, right? When I applied for the chief of staff in Texas, I knew the people. I'm from Texas, or from South Texas. I knew the students. I knew a lot of the coordinating board, so right, just the policy, what governs the work that we did in higher ed. I knew the stats, I knew the data, you know what I mean? I knew all of that. I didn't know the new president. And that that's just something, right, to keep in mind. I come here to Sac State and I only know the new president, right? Like, I don't know California. I studied a little bit. I studied the master plan in the California master plan. So I knew a little bit, but everything was so new and different. So I was just very honest. I was like, I don't know that that I am the right person. But obviously it all worked out, and yeah, so then I came out here with my 9-year-old son. I had gotten divorced already. Came out here and yeah, it's been.
So you worked there for how long?
At Sac State? 8 years.
8 years.
And in that time though, okay, so 2015 is when we came to Sac State, and then 2017 in April is when I defended my dissertation. So that's when I finished writing. It took me longer to write. I finished my dissertation, and it was so funny because I was just remembering this the other day. I left for a week to defend my dissertation, to kind of finish it and work on the presentation and stuff in Texas. And then I came back, and I remember that Monday morning, President Nelson calls me into his office and says, like, we need to talk, come see me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've only been gone a week, what happened, right? Well, one of our vice presidents was leaving, our vice president for advancement, so the fundraising piece of it. He was taking another job, and so he's like, I need you to step in the interim role. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that, but you know what, I'm done writing, I can figure it out, right? And we were gonna meet all the time anyway. So I stepped into that role for about 5 months. I was interim vice president for University Advancement, and worked on the budget and worked on merging 2 communications departments, right? So it was a lot of work, but I was successful. And then I went back to being chief of staff, and then another VP leaves, and he's like, okay, I need you to step in to be interim vice president for human resources. And I was like, I don't know the first thing about HR, and that's like, in Texas there were no unions. Here it's a unionized state, and so it's a lot of the work that we do, right, is like negotiating with unions, not the contracts, but still. And I was like, I can't do this. He's like, I need you to. So I stepped into the HR role for about 9 months. It took us a little longer to hire that position. At the same time, the vice president for advancement who we had hired leaves, and so for a while there, I was technically still chief of staff. I was doing interim VP for human resources, and then I was admin in charge for university advancement because I had already done the role, right? And so I was basically like signing and trying to make sure that things were still flowing, right? And I think at that point a friend of mine and I talked to, like, it might now might really be the time to consider a permanent vice president position. And I love my HR colleagues, but like there's not really a lot of joy in HR. And it's hard work, and there's a ton of joy in advancement, right? There was more, fit my personality more. So I applied for the vice president for advancement, and that was the last role I had at Sac State.
Man, your life is so interesting. Everything is so cool, but I don't want to make it too long at the same time, but I want to make it too long. So I would like to jump into your new position.
That brings us here, right? Interestingly enough too, right, I had started exploring, I think President Nelson had he and I had talked through it. He always said I would make a good community college president. And it wasn't something that I necessarily said, like, that's my goal, right? But I was like, oh, there's an opportunity. I don't want to, miss it, right? Like, that's how I think I've approached a lot of these positions too. Like, if it's a good opportunity, if I feel like it's a good fit, I'll move forward. So in March of this year, I was approached about an opening. This position had just become open, and was still a little hesitant, but Sac State was getting a new president because Robert had he was retiring, and the more that I thought about it, the more that I really, really wanted to stay in this community. I absolutely have loved Sacramento, and it's just, my son is a senior, he's a senior right now, Diego, and not knowing what the future was for Sac State, I wasn't scared. I wasn't like running from anything, but I had to give this opportunity a chance, right? And so I ended up applying, went through the process. I think when I met, especially with the students, I was like, this feels good. This feels right. This feels like a place where I want to go and help lead, right? Whatever, what that looks like. But two other interesting facts about it is in December, I bought a house and moved in December, and it ended up being 5 minutes from campus. And so, okay, if that's not a sign, right? So again, it all felt really good. It felt like the universe was telling me, you know. And so as I'm like negotiating and still not sure, my mom, after I accepted, my mom said that ARC are her initials. And I was like, oh my gosh! Or maybe it was right before I accepted. I hadn't signed or something. Anyway, it was so beautiful, right? She's Alicia Ramirez Cardoza.
Oh my God.
And I hadn't even recognized that. So every time I see ARC here, I'm like, I think of my mom. So it's so beautiful. Like I said, I feel like the universe really delivered. I didn't even know that I was like, you know, lip searching.
But at the same time, I feel like you worked for it since the beginning. Like it didn't happen because you're pretty or anything. No, it happened because you showed to yourself that you were capable. Yeah. It's just like if I'm your mom, I'll be so proud.
Thank you. It really does feel like it's the right next stop for me, right? Like it's the right place for me. Anyway, like I said, the community has been so great, and even as I have started here and met with people, and you know, everyone is here for the right reasons. Everyone wants our students to be successful, right? The number of stories that have been shared with me about, you know, just like I was in line for to get into an event, and I started talking to the couple next to me. They met here. They met at ARC and got married, and they're like this, you know, they've been together, I don't know, 40 some years. And I was like, that's a beautiful story. And so yeah, just I've heard stories of, you know, my favorite professor was a professor at ARC, and even though, like, you know, they only came here for a couple of semesters or whatever, it's beautiful. So it really feels really good, very positive, very I'm excited. And now again, like I said, we had our kickoff today, and so the students are back, and yeah,
you're back on business.
Yeah, exactly. We're back, and I'm excited to see where this.
And what is your job, Tori? What do you do?
Yeah.
What are you about to do now? I mean, I know nothing about
No. I'm laughing because one of my students, who I met over the summer through the Homeless World Cup, she was a participant in the Homeless World Cup, and she represented the United States. And I was talking about her today, but she's a new student here, and she asked me, she's like, so what do you do? I was like,
so right,
exactly. I was like, I make decisions all day. That's a really hard way to put it. But so yeah, I oversee kind of just all of the. Well, here's another interesting way to see it, right? Because I went to a new CEO conference, and they said, how many of you come from the instruction side? So that's all of the classes, right? It's all of the instructors, the faculty, again, like the classes, right? Counseling. So this is the instruction side, and then there's the student service side, which is more all the programs that we offer. My early start was in student services. When I was talking about outreach and doing, you know, those programs, all of those programming is student services, and then, you know, and then I have my advancement background, right? So I was like, well, I didn't come from either of those sides, but I feel like having been the chief of staff, I had enough of a knowledge, right, of each of those areas of what happens, what to look for, what questions to ask, things like that. So now I oversee all of that, right? Now I oversee all of that for this college. And then all the business administration piece, right?
So do they have to go through you? Like, if you see something, no, I don't like it, like that, or?
So the vice presidents make a lot of decisions themselves as well, but for the most part, we work as a team, and we get to. I mean, I learned the other day that I interview all of the new faculty, and I was like, "What do you mean? I interview all new faculty?" Like, that just seems like a lot. But I will say, I've sat now on these interviews, and I'm actually glad to have this experience because that's right. And as they say, as you know, we were told, like as I heard somebody say this, like you hire them for 30 years because they're tenured, right? With the faculty here, and so yeah, so I do want to be invested. I want to make sure that I'm hiring the best faculty for our students, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very impressed with the faculty who I have interviewed to date. I really, again, the role of the community college. I don't know if I shared. I don't think I shared this with you, but I did my master's thesis when I studied education on transfer students. So, you know, I've always just had an interest and that's what I was going to do my doctoral dissertation on. I had already started the first 3 chapters of working on transfer students because I think the community college, that's one function, right? But I think it's a very important function. But just the community having, you know, that in our name, right, is just incredible. And now that through advancement work, I've met so many people in this community. And I'm excited to also bring some of those connections, right, again, to amplify the good work that's happening, to help build programs and internships and things for our students, right? Everything to make sure that our students are successful and productive citizens.
What is a normal day to you? Because every time I see you, like wherever I see you, you're laughing, you're outgoing, you're fresh, you're like, oh, she slept 8 hours.
No, that is actually not.
What's your
not
normal
the case
day?
at all. So one, it's really nice to live 5 minutes away because I have been able to press the snooze button just a little bit. But yeah, I usually wake up about 6, and I'm now getting in a little bit of exercise. Very little, but I'm getting it in. And then I come here, and it's like meetings mostly, right? I meet with my leadership team a lot. In these weeks that I just started, I've been trying to meet with each of the managers, like the deans and the supervisors, managers in their area, right? So I've gotten lost on campus, right? But it's okay. Like that's why I told the students, like I feel like a new student here. But so I go and meet with them in their areas and get to talk to them and get to hear what I've been asking them, what are their pride points and their pain points, and then see how I can help, right? Just keeping that in mind. I know I can't change everything, I can't solve everything, right? But at least I know what's on their mind, and I'm able to keep that in mind when making decisions.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever get grumpy? I've never seen you, like, imagine when
But, so like I told you, so I was raised in a really positive, family, like, and my mom, you should hear when all of us get together and our laugh, right? Because I'm always laughing, it's all of us usually. I do, I have my moments, especially with my son. He's 17. Like this morning, I was like, it's his first day of school. And I was like, kid, are you gonna wake up? And he's like, I don't know what he was halfway. I was like, time to go. So yeah, no, I mean, but I try to. I feel like what you project is also what you bring in. So if you see me happy like that too, it's also because I'm happy to see you, right? But no, I mean it's a lot, and it's stressful, and there are some days that I don't get as much sleep and worrying about stuff, and but yeah, for the most part, it's been. I'm about to see what more,
What do you do outside your career?
Nothing.
Anything?
Nothing. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what are you good at? What are you good at, like outside? And I was like, nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, I hang out with friends, right? So I do feel like, evenings and weekends, or when I don't have events here, I try to spend it with.
Because you didn't take vacations. I remember you mentioned that you didn't take a.
No.
So when are you going to go on vacation?
I will. I hope I get to visit my family this holiday, and then we'll see, and maybe plan a vacation for next summer, because it is important to us, and I recognize that I should have maybe taken some time.
Did you take your kids to Disneyland?
No.
You never took them?
No. Am I supposed to? I think when he was younger. I don't really know.
No. Oh my God! I want to raise these. Poor kids.
They're fine. They're fine.
I'm just kidding. So thank you very much. Is there anything you would like to add to share with our community.
Oh my goodness, no, I just so honored to be serving in this role. So excited for what's to come. If you all have any ideas, ways to partner, have students you want to send my way, please do. So I'm happy to leave my contact information with you to post or whatever. But no, I'm excited. So thank you so much for this. Thank you. This was fun.
It was fun. I think I told you I enjoy you since day one. You're very energetic. You're very fresh with that taste of the Latinas pride. So she's just beautiful. So if you ever get to be around her, make sure to stop and say hi to her because she will always give you the biggest smile and make you feel good.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna finish my video saying thank you for everybody that got to the end. If you learned something with this video, it means we did something good. Thank you.
Thank you.